History has just been made, and if you weren't paying attention to the WNBA's free agency, you're about to see why this is one of the biggest moves in recent years. The Fever did not come to play. They are on a mission to win now, like 2025 championship season incoming. They were so quiet during free agency, and in the past 24 hours, boom, boom, boom. Re-signed Kelsey Mitchell to a max deal, picked up Natasha Howard, bringing her back to the Indiana Fever, where she was originally drafted, and then they just announced a three-way trade sending Alyssa Smith to Dallas and Sophie Cunningham coming to the Fever. The team in 24 hours just got exponentially better. Starting five, Caitlin at the 1, Kelsey at the 2, Lexi Hogg, Sophie can duke it out for the 3, Natasha Howard at the 4, Aaliyah Boston at the 5. But Caitlin Clark is coming into the league, and ESPN just confirmed that the Indiana Fever dominated free agency in a way that could change the entire trajectory of the franchise. But how did they pull this off, and why are analysts calling this one of the smartest off-seasons in WNBA history? Stick around, because what we're about to break down isn't just big, it's game-changing for Caitlin Clark and the Fever. If you've followed the WNBA over the past few years, you know that the Fever have been stuck in a brutal rebuild, missing the playoffs for 7 straight seasons. But now, everything is different. For starters, Caitlin Clark isn't just another top prospect. She's a generational talent. A player who doesn't just bring elite skill, but a level of star power that can shift the entire landscape of the league. We're talking about someone who is already being compared to Steph Curry because of her limitless shooting range, elite court vision, and ability to single-handedly take over games. This isn't just another highly touted rookie. This is a franchise-changing player, someone the WNBA has been waiting for to take the league to another level of mainstream attention. It hands out to you about the experience, the champions that have been added to this. Yeah, I think that's kind of what everybody talked about when we're in the playoff last year of, we really didn't have much experience at all playing in playoff games. I don't know what the exact number was, but we really lacked in that area. So just adding pieces of, players that have been in this league, they know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to get to the finals. They know what it takes to win championships. I think it's exactly what we needed in our locker room. But here's the thing. Even the most talented rookies need the right team around them to succeed. We've seen plenty of superstars struggle when thrown into bad situations, forced to carry teams without proper support. That's why this offseason was so important for the Fever. They couldn't just draft Caitlin Clark and hope for the best. They needed to build a roster that could maximize her strengths, cover her weaknesses, and make sure she isn't thrown into a losing culture from day one. And that's exactly what they did. The Fever aced free agency, making all the right moves to surround Clark with a strong supporting cast while maintaining long-term flexibility to keep building around her. And that's why ESPN has officially named Indiana as the biggest winners of WNBA free agency. So what did they do right? Let's start with the core pieces they kept intact. First off, Aaliyah Boston isn't just any young star. She's one of the most dominant post players in the league, and she's only getting started. Boston was already a force as a rookie, winning WNBA Rookie of the Year while averaging double-digit points and controlling the paint with her elite rebounding and defense. Pairing her with Caitlin Clark, that's a dream combination. Think about it. Clark's ability to shoot from anywhere means defenses will have to stretch out to guard her, opening up the paint for Boston to go to work inside. Meanwhile, Boston's ability to command double teams down low will force defenses to collapse, creating even more open looks for Clark to knock down those deep threes she's famous for. It's a perfect duo, one that could dominate the WNBA for years to come. But Indiana didn't stop there. They went out and added veteran leadership, because if you're bringing in a young superstar like Caitlin Clark, you need experienced players who know how to win. That's where DeWanna Bonner comes in. Bonner is one of the most respected veterans in the game, a 2-time WNBA champion with the ability to score, defend, and provide leadership in the locker room. She's exactly the kind of player who can help Caitlin Clark adjust to the pro level while also giving Indiana another scoring threat on the wing. But that's not all. The Fever also made key role player additions, ensuring that Clark has shooters and defenders around her who can help elevate her game. Let's talk about why this matters so much. Caitlin Clark is an elite playmaker. She's not just a scorer. She creates for her teammates, finding open shooters and setting them up for easy buckets. That's why it was crucial for Indiana to bring in players who can hit those shots. If Clark is driving the lane, drawing defenders, and kicking the ball out, her teammates need to knock down those open looks. And that's exactly what Indiana set up with this roster. They built a team that isn't just good on paper, but one that actually complements Clark's skill set. Compare this to other top picks in recent WNBA history. We've seen plenty of number one draft selections come into the league with high expectations, only to struggle because their teams didn't put the right pieces around them. Look at Sabrina Ionescu in New York. When she first came into the league, the Liberty didn't have the right roster to support her play style. It took years for them to build a team around her that could actually compete. Or think about Ryan Howard in Atlanta, another number one pick with tons of talent, but it's taken time for the Dream to find the right pieces to complement her game. Indiana, they're not making that mistake. They're making sure Caitlin Clark walks into a winning situation from day one. And that's why ESPN just confirmed what a lot of us already knew, the Fever won free agency. Now, let's talk about how this compares to the rest of the league, because not every team had a great offseason. Look at the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning champions, but their free agency moves left a lot to be desired. They failed to add key depth, and their roster isn't as strong as it was last year. While they still have A.G. Wilson and Kelsey Plum, they didn't make the kind of moves that keep a team ahead of the competition. Then there's Dallas, who made some highly questionable signings, including overpaying for players who might not even fit their system. Chemistry-wise, things could get messy for them, and they didn't improve as much as they needed to. Meanwhile, the New York Liberty stayed relatively quiet, choosing to keep their core intact, but not making any major upgrades. And then, of course, there's the Indiana Fever, who absolutely nailed it. They didn't just get better, they built a team that has a legitimate path to contention in the near future. This isn't just about making the playoffs, this is about building a future powerhouse. And let's be real, Caitlin Clark is about to change everything. She's bringing in millions of new fans, generating more media attention than the WNBA has seen in years, and putting Indiana Fever games on the national radar in a way that we haven't seen before. That's why this offseason was so crucial. It wasn't just about getting Clark, it was about making sure this team is ready to capitalize on the hype and turn it into real success. If you're a Fever fan, this is the most exciting time in years. For the first time in a long time, Indiana isn't just rebuilding, they're building something real. A team that has the right mix of young talent, veteran leadership, and role players who fit perfectly around Caitlin Clark. And honestly, the rest of the league should be a little worried, because if Clark lives up to the hype, and there's no reason to think she won't, this Indiana team could be one of the most dangerous squads in the league within just a couple of seasons. But we're not done yet. Because while ESPN has given Indiana the best grade in free agency, there's still a lot of debate about whether or not this team is truly ready to compete for a title, or if they still have work to do. Because while they've already won free agency, the real question is, can they win it all? So we've established that Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have already won free agency. At least according to ESPN, they've surrounded their soon-to-be superstar with talent, leadership, and depth, ensuring she doesn't have to shoulder the entire load in her rookie season. But here's the next big question. How good can this team actually be? Winning free agency is one thing. Turning that into wins on the court, that's a whole different challenge. There are two major factors that will determine how quickly this team can turn things around. First, how well will Caitlin Clark adjust to the WNBA? And second, how does this new-look Fever team stack up against the league's best? Let's start with Clark's transition to the pro game. For as dominant as she was in college, the jump to the WNBA is not an easy one. The league is filled with bigger, faster, and more physical defenders, and rookies, even the best ones, often take time to adjust. Take Sabrina Ionescu, for example. She entered the league in 2020 with similar hype, hailed as the future of women's basketball. But early injuries and the challenge of adapting to pro-level defenses meant her rookie year wasn't nearly as dominant as fans expected. It wasn't until her third season that she truly found her rhythm and became an all-star. Then there's A'ja Wilson, who also came into the league as a number one pick with high expectations. Unlike Sabrina, Wilson had an immediate impact, averaging 20 points and 8 rebounds as a rookie, and proving that some generational talents don't need years to adjust. They take over right away. So where does Caitlin Clark fit into this? Well, she has one huge advantage over most rookies. Her play style is built for the modern game. Clark's shooting ability is a game changer. She can pull up from logo range, force defenses to stretch far beyond their comfort zone, and create open looks for teammates just by being a threat anywhere on the court. That's a skill set that translates immediately. Defenses won't be able to ignore her, and if they try to double team her, they'll leave someone else open. But at the same time, she's going to have to adjust to WNBA defenses. The players she'll be facing are stronger, quicker, and way more experienced than anyone she saw in college. For example, in the NCAA, defenders couldn't always keep up with her movement off the ball. But in the WNBA, she's going to be guarded by elite-level perimeter defenders who won't give her an inch of space. She's also going to face more contact. In college, she got a lot of calls when defenders made even minor contact. But in the pros, the refs let more physicality go, and she'll have to learn how to play through that. So while Clark's offensive skill set is built for the WNBA, she'll still need to adjust to the physicality and defensive pressure that comes with playing at this level. But here's where Indiana's off-season moves come into play. The reason Clark won't struggle as much as some other rookies is because she won't have to do everything herself. She'll have Aaliyah Boston controlling the paint, meaning defenses can't completely key in on Clark. She'll have DeWanna Bonner as another scoring option, taking some of the pressure off her to be the main source of offense every game. And she'll have experienced players around her who can teach her the little things, how to handle physical defenses, how to pace herself over a long WNBA season, and how to adjust to different defensive schemes. That's what separates this Fever team from the young teams of the past that struggle to develop their stars. They aren't just drafting talent and hoping for the best. They're building a system where their young players can actually succeed. But here's the next question. How does this Fever team match up against the league's best? Because while Indiana has massively improved, they're still stepping into a league where teams like Las Vegas and New York have already built dominant rosters. Let's take a look at the best teams in the WNBA and where Indiana fits into the mix. Las Vegas Aces, they're still the team to beat. A'ja Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young form the core of a back-to-back championship team, and they still have one of the most dangerous offenses in the league. While their depth took a hit in free agency, they still have the experience, chemistry, and elite-level talent to be the favorites. If Indiana wants to compete with Vegas, they'll need to prove they can defend elite perimeter scorers, because the Aces will absolutely test their defense every single possession. New York Liberty, another super team built around Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, and Sabrina Ionescu. The Liberty are deep, versatile, inexperienced, and they play a style of basketball that will challenge Indiana's defense. For Indiana to beat a team like New York, they'll need to rely on their speed and three-point shooting to stretch the floor and force New York's bigger front court to guard the perimeter. Connecticut's Sun. The Sun have been one of the most consistent teams in the league, with Alyssa Thomas leading the charge. They play physical, defensive-minded basketball, and this is the kind of team that will try to wear down Caitlin Clark with aggressive, in-your-face defense. If Clark and the Fever want to compete against teams like Connecticut, they'll have to prove they can handle that kind of pressure over a full 4 quarters. So, where does Indiana fit into all this? Right now, they aren't title contenders just yet, but they could make the playoffs for the first time in 7 years, and that alone would be a huge step forward. Realistically, they're in the middle of the pack, with a high ceiling depending on how quickly Clark and Boston develop into one of the best duos in the league. But here's what makes them so dangerous. They aren't just building for this season, they're building for the future. If Clark lives up to the hype, if Boston keeps developing into an MVP caliber big, and if Indiana keeps making smart roster moves, this team could be a real championship contender within the next few years. And that's why ESPN gave them the highest grade in free agency, because they aren't just making moves for today, they're setting themselves up for long-term success. The only question now is, how fast can she take over? Some rookies need years to adjust, others come in and dominate right away. Caitlin Clark has the chance to be one of the rare players who changes a franchise from day one. If she plays up to her potential, if Indiana's roster clicks the way it's supposed to, and if they can hold their own against the league's best teams, then we might be talking about one of the biggest rookie impacts in WNBA history. And the scary part, this is just the beginning. The WNBA is about to change forever, and Caitlin Clark is leading the way. So there you have it. Caitlin Clark is coming into the WNBA with the perfect setup for success, and ESPN is already calling the Indiana Fever the biggest winners of free agency.